Well, what do you mean? I'm actually trying to understand why you think it is okay to unnecessarily cause the rape, murder, and exploitation of chickens.
I don't know that I'm going to be able to give you an answer that you're going to accept.
There are 3 different issues to deal with here, and maybe 2 of them are flattering towards Richard, towards vegan gains, and one of them is kind of unflattering. So it's kind of too bad, it's kind of regrettable that they're all bundled up in one package. The first issue is nobody should go to a conference just to lie and be lied to. Nobody should go to a conference just to shake hands and say flattering pleasantries. It's a waste of everyone's time at best, and at worst, it has really corrosive effects on society as a whole, especially on academia and especially on political activism, that people show up and sit on a stage behind a table like this, and they pretend that they're the ones speaking truth to power. But as you can see in this clip, they're totally unprepared for someone from the audience speaking truth to power to them. So look, that's the first issue, is either you're keeping it real or you're not. And I have a lot of sympathy for Richard standing up and trying to do something honest and authentic. And this moment that transpires in the audience, I'm sure it was the most memorable and most interesting moment of the whole conference for the people who were in that audience, the people who were in that tent watching what happened on that stage. And it was probably a very sharp contrast to the kind of pointless, meandering discussion of abstract generalities that preceded Richard standing up and demanding to know, hey, if these are the principles you preach, if you're about animal rights, why is it that you're still eating cheese and eggs? Why is it you're still indirectly exploiting cows and chickens?
Hi, so I believe your name is Steph, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I think the point you brought up about intersectionality was kind of interesting, especially since you're vegetarian, not vegan, correct?
I am.
Okay, so if you, like you did just mention that we should treat animals the way we treat each other. So would you rape, murder, and exploit other people? Like the way you support the rape, murder, and exploitation of cows and chickens?
I don't think that's a helpful question.
No, it is. No, it absolutely is. So this is a vegan event, correct?
What we're trying to achieve with this
what we're trying to achieve with this event is to promote veganism, correct? Not exploitation of animals. So one of your organizers here supports the exploitation of animals, and especially since she believes in intersectionality, I think it's extraordinarily hypocritical for her to claim that, oh, well, it's wrong to, rape, objectify, and all this stuff, but you are in fact supporting rape, exploitation, murder with your food choices.
We've heard your point. We appreciate your point.
Well, no. I'd actually like her to actually respond to the question, because I think I do have a valid point.
Sure. So like I mentioned, the TVA as an organization tries to meet people wherever they are on their journey. So whether
How many years have you been vegetarian?
5.
Okay, so in those 5 years you haven't figured out how to give up milk and eggs.
So we like to meet people wherever they are.
Okay, so
on their
in those
journey.
5, okay,
Richard,
so
please
in those
let her
5
answer your
years,
question.
Yes,
no, in those
yeah,
5, so in those 5 years you haven't discovered how to not include milk and eggs in your diet. You haven't discovered how to just eat soy milk and not eat eggs and like make tofu scramble instead.
We've heard your point. Thank you for your point. We're asking you to sit down now, please.
Okay, well, she hasn't answered the question. Why do you support the
Responding
unnecessary...
to your question.
No, she didn't. No, she
I'm
didn't.
asking
She just
you
said
to
she was at a
respond to
certain
your
point in her
questions.
journey. No, she just said she was at a certain point in her journey, and I'm asking her, after 5 years of being vegetarian, why is it that you have not been able to discover how to not unnecessarily harm, exploit, rape, murder cows and chickens?
I appreciate where you are in your journey, and I think everybody's at a different stage in their life. And
You've been vegetarian for 5 years.
Please.
Well, what do you mean? I'm actually trying to understand why you think it is okay to unnecessarily cause the rape, murder, and exploitation of chickens.
I don't know that
and
I'm going to
cows.
be able to give you an answer that you're going to accept, so I think the conversation between us is probably...
Well, what do you mean an answer that I'll accept? Just give me an answer.
We don't answer to you, though. Like, you're not the authority that we have to measure our own progress, our own journey again.
Okay, so do you believe it is morally acceptable
Does
to
anyone
cause
else
the
have a
unnecessary
question
rape?
while we're trying to get...
Do you have any?
Yeah.
Do you have?
Yes,
Okay,
a
so
question
do you
over
have?
here.
No, do you have an
Richard,
actual
please yield
excuse?
the mic to
No,
somebody
do you
else.
have a reasonable exploitation for unnecessary? Okay.
I'm sorry, I just opened it. It's going to be very effective here. It's maybe a conversation we can have a conversation.
You're a hypocrite. You're a hypocrite. You're a moral hypocrite. You have no reason. No, you have no reason. You have no reason to cause the unnecessary suffering, death, exploitation of animals. No, no, you're pathetic. No, guess what? No, guess what? Guess what? Guess what? The animals that you cause the unnecessary death, suffering, exploitation of, they have no choice. They cannot run away from what you do to them. You are pathetic. You are running away from what I'm asking you. You're running away from the truth. You're trying to make... You won't even make up an excuse. You're just running away. Okay, then give me a reason for why it's okay to cause the unnecessary suffering, death, and exploitation of cows and chickens. Why is it okay? So you're telling me the way I'm speaking to you is worse than how you treat animals? You're saying rape, murder, and exploitation is better than how I'm treating you?
So can you please anyone on the panel wants to speak to some of the
Right, exactly. So you're a dishonest coward. No, you're a dishonest coward and a moral hypocrite, especially since you talk about intersectionality. Yeah, especially since you talk about intersectionality. You're pathetic.
This brings us to the second of the three issues. Although I may sympathize with Richard standing up and speaking truth to power this way, with Richard standing up and saying something really honest and authentic in contrast to all the other nonsense that goes on at conferences of this kind, the truth is, if you play by your own rules, you either have to play alone or you have to set up your own league. You have to set up your own team. Richard is not going to be invited back to this conference. Obviously, his way of pressing the issue here was disruptive and rude, so he'll never get to attend this kind of conference again unless he's the one organizing it, unless he's the one hosting it, unless he's the one leading it, which he should. He should have started doing that 5 years ago or something. Okay, maybe it's not 5 years yet. But I mean, when I first started talking to him years and years ago, I was asking him, like, okay, so what are your plans over the next 5 years? And he had absolutely no interest in being a leader in the vegan movement, not even to this extent. Those idiots who were sitting up at that table, Richard, they don't have any skills you lack. It's not like they can do something you can't do. If you wanted to be the one organizing people under that tent and setting the rules for discourse, what was acceptable and what wasn't, politically and otherwise, you could have been doing that for 3 years by now, all right? You chose not to. Richard, you chose to play video games, so when you show up at this conference, you are a guest in someone else's house instead of being the host. So they get to set the rules. They get to decide who's being polite and who's impolite. They get to kick you out. They get to exclude you. And now, because you chose to play by your own rules, that's where it's at. Obviously, I can sympathize. If you play by your own rules, you play alone, or you step up and take on that leadership role. This brings us to point 3 on the list, and it's really a shame that I have to have this in the same video. I'd rather this be a relatively positive video talking about vegan gains, standing up at this conference, and taking a completely meaningless conference and turning it into something meaningful. That's a more positive story. But point 3 is, unfortunately, Richard is still playing this game of demanding evidence for his own political views and the political views of others, and then saying, no, you can't prove it. I wish it were a meaningless example that we went through this with the connection between Richard and Corey McCarthy, Richard and Tara McCarthy. I publicly made videos criticizing and pointing out the extent to which Corey McCarthy and Tara McCarthy really were racists, really were white supremacists. I don't mean racist in the sense that they're just like prejudiced, that they were actively advancing a white supremacist, racist political platform. Overtly and intentionally, that was the political platform they were advancing. They were advancing, for example, the notion that the United States and Canada should exile all black people, all people of African ancestry. And Tara McCarthy was asked in a Q&A session, would she include vegan gains? Because they were friends. They were publicly friends. They knew each other. She was asked if she were to kick out all the black people, would she kick out her own friend, Richard, vegan gains? And long story short, her answer was yes, that they'd all be exiled, they'd all be sent back to Africa. So that was their political program. And Richard, I presented the evidence of how racist they were on my YouTube channel, and also just he and I talking. I remember talking to him directly. I remember saying to him, look, This is the front page of their website. Click on the About tab. This is what it says under About. How can it possibly be that you are denying that this is racist? Like, here, let's just read off explicitly what their goals are politically. Like, if this isn't racism and racialism, it's like, and at that time on their website, the website's now gone, they were explicitly committed to eliminating intermarriage between the races, like black people and white people marrying each other and having kids. It's like Richard, and their reasons for doing it were racists, almost needless to say. Like, you are going to deny evidence this blatant when it's shown to you, to your face, just because it's inconvenient for you. It's just not what you want to believe. It's an inconvenient truth, whatever. And my experience with Richard is, yes, that's his attitude. He's friends with somebody, or he maybe on some level admires Corey McCarthy as a bodybuilder, and then he just will not hear anything inconvenient. I made a huge video, so just huge in length and how much it covers. I made a huge video dealing with brain damage caused by marijuana. Vegan Gains, supposedly a man of science who can appreciate peer-reviewed research, that video was a stack of peer-reviewed evidence about brain damage caused by marijuana. Even more science has come out since then, of course. Continues to be researched now that marijuana has been legalized. What are its harmful effects on the brain? Richard was completely capable of just dismissing and denying that. Oh, all this evidence that's inconvenient? Not interested. Richard, I hope you develop some self-knowledge, because that's the kind of guy you are. Whenever something is politically inconvenient for you, whether it's someone pointing to your own political statements of the past, or Corey McCarthy's political statements, or something in modern medical literature, scientific literature, if you don't want to believe it, it doesn't matter how much is presented to you. You're never willing to take criticism on board in a meaningful way and respond in a meaningful way. And none of those would be hard to deal with. Like, it wouldn't be hard for you to react to, oh, okay, this bodybuilder turns out to be a member of a white supremacist political party. There's no reason why that would be intellectually challenging for you to deal with. There's no reason why it would be challenging for you to deal with someone disagreeing with you about any of your view on gun ownership, or your view on Black Lives Matter as a political movement or something. Why can't you deal with that in a sincere and authentic and intellectual way? And it's tragically parallel to what played out just now at this conference, where you're talking to this woman on stage, sitting on the podium, sitting behind the desk up on the stage, and she's just not capable of even recognizing and responding to your argument or your question, even though it should be so obvious, it should be so easy for her to do so. So look, man, the moral of this story ultimately is keeping it real cuts both ways. Talking truth to power cuts both ways. It's not just about Vegan Gains stuffing it in other people's faces. Richard, you're also the target of political critique and cross-examination, and even scientific and medical critique and cross-examination. Not everything on your channel that way has been entirely accurate. You've made some mistakes, to say the least. You're not a research scientist. You don't have any formal training or education in nutrition or dietetics. You've gone way outside of your area of expertise many, many times. Does anyone else remember him attempting to interpret a coroner's report after the mysterious death of a certain bodybuilder? Like, you step way beyond your ability to interpret peer-reviewed scientific literature. You take a stand like that all the time. And you step way outside your area of expertise in terms of society and politics also. I used to always say about Richard, the problem was he was capable of really focusing and doing detailed, research on a topic like cholesterol levels. But he would just never rise to that level of self-discipline and focus when dealing with political questions. Not even if it was something as obvious as, hey, let's read the front page of Corey McCarthy's website. Let's face up to the reality of just how explicitly racist this person and their political agenda might really be.